Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to, what is it, the 27th panel? I don't know, I just guessed that. I'm Luis Miguel Echegaray, and I'm the co-host of Planet Football at Sports Illustrated. I'm also the director of Latino and Hispanic content at SI, and I'm very, very excited about the conversation that we will have. Look, we have the countdown here, 45 minutes and less. But this conversation will be about professionalizing a league and the obstacles that come with it, the challenges that come with it, both from a geographical to a socio-economical perspective. And to be honest with you, I'm coming at this from a very journalistic experience where I'm really trying to dwell in and really gain as much knowledge as I can from these four gentlemen. Before further ado, I want to introduce Earl Cochran. Earl is the Chief Strategy Development Officer for Canada. Miguel Angel Lur, who has a tremendous amount of experience and now specifically coming from Guayaquil, but is now the head of the Ecuadorian League in Ecuador. We have Dexter Skeen, the former CEO of Trinidad and Tobago, and of course Randy Harris, the president of the Caribbean Union. I want to welcome you guys, gentlemen, to this conversation. And as I said, this all begins with the first question. And when I ask a question, please feel free to chime in and add, edit, and do whatever you wish it is when it comes to this conversation. Here's my first question, and it really begins with you, Earl. I'll start with you, and gentlemen, please feel free to chime in. When we talk about creating a league from scratch, it's obviously going to be different depending on where it is that you're building this league and the people that you're trying to represent, and so many things come with it. So I guess my question, which can be related to Canada, but it really also begins with, the surrounding Americas. What is your number one target that you're trying to get from a generalistic perspective, and what is your obstacle as well? What's the number one problem that you will have to face when it comes to developing the Canadian League? I threw you right into the lion's den, Earl.
I appreciate it.
You can pick one or the other.
Well, I think I'll talk about just a general kind of obstacle, right? Because I think it will come out in the wash as we sort of talk more about it. But the general obstacle is creating something that just didn't exist before. Right? I think of football as not a pyramid, not a set of departments or programs. I think of football as an ecosystem, right? Very much a living thing. And when you have an existing system, and then you're layering something brand new on that, like a professional league, the knock-on effect to all of the things within that ecosystem are affected, right? I think of it more like a spider web and dropping something onto a spider web, and that ripple effect has permeations right across the game in our country, right? So that is a major obstacle for us, I think. And I talked about, what was the original question?
Well, the other part of it, now we're focusing on Canada. Let's focus on Canada, because when I think about the Canadian soccer culture, it's also, and aside from the fact that you have a tremendously successful Canadian women's team, you still also have major cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, whose main market is also now gearing towards Major League Soccer. So how are you able to grow a league and also fight those blocks in the process?
Yeah, it just hit me again. What is our goal, right? What is ultimately the rationale for us creating a league that is solely Canadian, and it is about the lack of opportunity, really. When we started this discussion about how to create a league and what we wanted it for, it was all about creating more opportunities for Canadian players, for Canadian coaches, Canadian officials, Canadian administrators, just building a far more sustainable soccer economy, if you will, right? This just didn't exist. Yes, we have 3 Major League Soccer markets in the country, in our 3 major markets, in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, who are doing unbelievable things, in those markets, right? They're doing a lot for football in our country. But those are 3 markets with a country the size of Canada, with a population base of close to 40 million. We need more opportunities for all of those people involved in the game. And that was really the genesis for what we did.
We had a few conversations in the past, where in many ways, Dexter and Randy, there were a few similarities to maybe the issues in the Caribbean. Or because in so many ways, what happens is even though we have a sort of an amalgamation of about 30 to 40 million plus, if you combine all of them, right? Where it's islands trying to create their own identity within their own society, but at the same time creating a union between the other nations that surround it. So what are the obstacles in the Caribbean, specifically not just as one community, but also trying to engage and relate and connect with the others that surround it?
Well, obviously we have the Caribbean Football Union, and we really look out for each other. The problem with the Caribbean is that we are a number of islands, 31 of us, and there is really no good transportation system. We travel by air, unreliable flights. We can't drive from one to the other, and that has created perhaps the biggest challenge with football, having professional football in the Caribbean. Also, our economies of scale are very, very small. And we have to be careful with the credibility of building a professional union in some place like the Caribbean. We don't want to have the wrong kind of people investing in football, and that is something we have to look at very, very seriously. And but transportation really is a big obstacle to having the football at that level operate as it should.
Go ahead, Dex.
If I can chime in, Randy's correct, but coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, we started 2002 to form our own professional football league, as we call it, soccer, as you say. And we had 2 goals and objectives. One, to build an industry where the young men can earn a living from playing professional football. And 2, to qualify on a regular basis for World Cup, because when we analyzed it, without professional football, you cannot qualify for a World Cup on a regular basis. And when the league was formed, the government was on board. They understood that it should be a part of the Ministry of Industry and Trade. So as a result, they financed it at the beginning. Subsequently, the problems began in terms of understanding governance, understanding building a proper fan base and a sustainable business. The guys who were involved, they love soccer. They had a reasonable amount of capital to invest, but their pockets were not deep enough. You need to have people with deep pockets because it's a process. It's the MLS only started to get revenues from television after 10 years, and that's a mature market. Trinidad and Tobago is an immature market in terms of professional sport. We have no history of that. And these guys were coming in without the knowledge. And that's the importance. And this is what I like to convey to people who want to get involved in professional soccer. The governance aspect is critical. It's about you setting up your organization in such a way that it improves performance, so that from the appointment of your directors, you need to have people who have the requisite skills. They must be appointed based on a meritocratic system. So you have to have people there with finance skills, legal skills, the business of sports skills, and as well marketing skills. That was the challenge at our level. We had people who loved soccer. They had teams before, and they just came into the professional league loving football. So the dialogue at the board level hovered around football, around fixtures, around the games, around the results, and the business of sport was left unattended. And basically, that was a major challenge.
And I think that can be a great actual connection to you, Miguel, because now when we talk about Ecuador, a country with obviously, arguably, the most popular sport is football, is the game. We can obviously talk about others, but you know, not just from the national team or the international reputation with players going to Europe, etc., but also you yourself having the experience of taking care of a club and then moving on to trying to see how you oversee that league. What's your obstacle when you face a South American nation like Ecuador?
Well, I'm gonna like start telling you a little bit of a story
Sure.
of how we created the
Just
league.
make it less than 35
No,
minutes.
don't worry. We actually been working for around 6 months creating this league. And the first thing we did was to analyze the whole thing, the environment, how was the soccer in our country. We realized that the economic issue was the biggest problem. I mean, we can't do anything if all the teams have big debts, and there's nothing we can work on after that. So the first thing we need to do was economic control. We have a partnership with LaLiga, the Spanish league, and we realized that if it worked for them, it's obviously going to work for us. So we start building regulations, rules, and incredibly, unanimously, all the teams approve it. So after that, it's different, the whole thing. Right now we have rules, we all set the regulations, and after that, it's just trying to get more resources for the clubs and have a solid economy for them.
So where are you now? And I guess the question is to all of you, where are you right now, do you think, in your own respective communities? I mean, obviously, Randy, you can talk about it from a whole, section, but where are you right now in terms of how you envision the progress of the game and the progress of the leagues in your respective areas?
Well, let me start. I think that for us, I don't know, the president of Javier Tebas, he was there, and he told us that we were like, for the first 6 months, it's like being like 3 years for us, because we have all the support of the teams, of the clubs, so it really makes it easier. They made the whole process better. And right now, we are about 3 months to start the tournament. It's going to be our tournament right now, the league. So I'm really looking forward to it.
How about you, Earl?
Before I say, I also said we've never met before, and one of the first conversations we had as we walked in was perhaps the most important part of creating a league, or even jumping into an existing structure, is fiscal responsibility, right? And I think it resonates right across all of our platforms. Where we are today, and I should recognize that I'm speaking on behalf of our federation, right? So we are providing oversight and governance to the Canadian Premier League, but we're tightly interwoven. And so where we are today is, or maybe we're pregnant with a league, right? We're about to deliver a league, and so in a similar fashion, we are doing all of those things that you are required to do with a newborn, right? We're preparing to be parents, and so governance is an important part of that. One of the most important things that we had in place to help us through this process was club licensing, right? Club licensing, which we created in 2015 in partnership with CONCACAF and FIFA. We had 5, 6, 7 clubs at the time to allow us to kind of oversee and guide them. And those clubs were from existing leagues, generally cross-border leagues. Now we had a template to be able to hand the clubs to say, here is what you need to be doing in order to be successful, whether that be, or what you require from an infrastructure perspective, what you need administratively, fiscally, legally, and from a sporting perspective. Here is what our expectations are. And it became a dialogue for about a year, setting them up to make sure that they were going to succeed. We also layered in a social responsibility element to that too, to make sure that in their communities, they were doing what was expected of them from us. So from an oversight perspective, that's where we are. We are driving towards April, when the league kicks off.
Which in many ways is a great advantage when you're beginning something because you originally implement this sort of hierarchy. If we go to the Caribbean, how does that work? Because not only are you trying to help different, organizations, but you still have to give them some kind of leeway to run their own you talk about transportation being a big issue. How do you solve that when everybody has their different demands economically, culturally, etc.?
Well, as a group, as you know, may have known, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Haiti, they have their own professional leagues. The others are a way off from having professional football. That is why I have to praise the players in the Caribbean so often, because they're working during the day, and then it's just a little while to train. And many times they're competing with professionals. But we are a little way off from, as a group, having professional football. Our thoughts is that we'll have a Caribbean professional league. But we don't really have a lot of people with deep pockets to really support their individual teams. So we are looking at it from an association's point of view, but with the associations investing as individuals in such a league. But of course, we don't have the experience with that. We don't know how that really will work with the individuals. But we are thinking that through the FIFA Forward, we'll be in a better position financially to look at the reality of it.
And it's critical, Luis, to ensure that the financial aspects are in place. Trinidad went into this league on a promise by the government and the understanding that soccer-specific stadia, or as we coined it in Trinidad, football-friendly facilities, would be built within each community represented by the teams. So we laid out this whole strategic marketing plan. We developed several brand extensions because Trinidad is a fun-loving and carnival mentality. So we developed the whole fan base to build the fan base around the carnival type mentality, parties, around the games, giveaways, entertainment, and so on.
An experience.
That's right. And we developed knockout tournaments, which was short, over 3 or 4 weeks, on a Friday evening, where after work they would come and hang out and so on at these games. And the fan base started to build. We had, from normally people like a couple hundred at a game, we would have like 5,000 people coming there each week to support the games. And then the government changed. And as a result, the support was pulled back. And we continued. The money started to dry up, as I said, because the owners did not have the pockets necessary and also the experience. So the two things, in terms of government and building a fan base, were restricted because we did not have the experience and the finance necessary.
I mean, I differ a little bit, because don't get me wrong, we need the money and the deep pockets, but our teams, they, like, for example, they income 10 million and they'd spend 20. So, I mean, if I bring 30...
Sounds like a South American.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking like a South American.
So it doesn't matter, because I can bring the 20 and then you're going to spend 30.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what we need is economic control. Like, establish rules, and then after that, whatever money you bring, I mean, it's going to work specific for what you need. So, after that, we're trying right now to make more attractive tournament. I mean, change the way the games are played. I mean, like, right now you have like 44 matches, and then you have to face each team 4 times. It's kind of boring. Right now, what we have is we change it completely. You face it 2 times, and after that, you got playoffs. And
Is this thanks to LaLiga's influence as well? Or
Well,
is that
actually,
something that was
kind of my idea? But they approve it. And
Right.
right now, we have more teams, but a small calendar.
Yeah. So, as I listen to you, gentlemen, talk about certain obstacles, it seems to me also that there needs to be a real attention to when you professionalize the league, to develop the game at youth level, at how young kids can learn the game at an early age, where sort of the experience, the fan base, the adoration of the sport becomes so much even earlier than before a brick was even built in a stadium. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's not, when you have nations that are so invested anyway in playing the game, but infrastructure is obviously an issue. How much attention do you pay to putting a lot of effort into youth soccer and helping the passion and the fan base be built from that get-go? I mean, it's an open question.
That's what we're here. So what our league is doing, it's coming here just to see what better ideas to create that. I mean, our kids, they love the game. Our country is 90% soccer. So I think that making the whole environment better fields, better TV rights for everything. So at the end, that's what we're trying to build. Our clubs solid clubs, and after that, focus on the kids.
In the Caribbean, in Barbados for sure, we have a strong youth program, and I know in Trinidad they have these good youth programs and academies, but in many of the countries there is not a youth program, and that is very important. It is the future. And now CONCACAF has introduced Next Play, which is really going into the schools and getting more people involved and interested in the game. And I can see a great future for the game coming out of a program such as that. But our people are not socialized in a way to believe that sports is a professional career. So that is a problem we have to face with parents and teachers and the general public, because we don't look at sport as an industry. And I think at this time, many of us need football more than ever, because we have ailing economies. And this can provide a great avenue for boys and girls to really make a living from the game.
We implemented a youth system. Within each club was required to have a U13, U15, U17.
It was an official
So
mandate you
we
had.
have official youth tournaments each year, and that was based on the understanding that we needed to have a pathway for the senior teams, so the boys would be able to come from the youth system into reserve system and then to the senior professional teams. It was also critical because the players, we found, needed to understand their role as professionals. They needed to understand that they were a brand within the brand.
Right.
And that was lacking as well. So, I mean, no fault of theirs. It's just that we are a young market and we need to be taught. Just like the players need to be taught and educated, the managerial and the executive as well need to be taught and educated in terms of professional sport and business. And so it's critical to have that youth league, and over time, with education and with exposure, they will then start to understand and become proper role models and being able to sell their club and the league as well.
I kind of look at it from two different perspectives. So I think people underestimate, or maybe they don't know just how much of a footballing nation Canada is.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's evidenced in the fact that in 2007, the Under-20 World Cup that was there was one of the most successful at the time. You know, the launch of the first Major League Soccer franchise in Canada, I think, and if you ask many people, was a game changer for the league. Right? It was one of those kind of pivoting turning points for them. And not just the men's game. The women's game has been incredibly successful in Canada, incredibly popular. 2015 was an enormous success from our perspective and from FIFA's perspective. We are the most popular sport in the country, right? And you say that, and people, what about hockey? What about hockey? No, we are the most popular sport in our country. but we are built on sort of a recreational platform for the most part, right? So in many respects, what this league will do is provide sort of an aspiration that didn't exist before, right? A something for young players who are currently in grassroots programs to aspire to, right? To want to deliver to. On the second way I'm looking at this too is just on the team's perspective. Yes, youth development within a team environment, academy development, the players within a club system is important to us. We've actually said to our Canadian Premier League teams to hold back for a couple of years. Build your infrastructure properly, build your professional team out, start to establish some links and partnerships within your communities, within your provinces, and then start to think about youth development, right? In specific as it relates to their clubs. Simply because the cost of youth development, certainly to fully fund it, is really high. And we don't want them to deviate from what their sole purpose is today, right? And that's to launch a league, to get their clubs started, and then we will build that in a couple of years within our licensing programs.
The other side that we perhaps haven't touched on a lot yet is the marketing side of things, and how growing a league, professionalizing a league, aside from the talent perspective, aside from the youth level perspective, aside from the soccer from a club level infrastructure perspective, is we need to look attractive as a business. How difficult is that in areas where it's difficult anyway to build a business or create a business, right?
It's kind of, at the beginning, it's kind of hard because we are in an industry that it lends to a lot of criticism. Soccer. Every weekend we criticize it, whatever happens. So what we need to do is, try to build the whole environment positive. So the companies and the sponsors want to come. Nobody wants to come to something negative. So that's what we're trying right now to do. We're lucky we have tripled the income from sponsors from this year compared to last one. So it's just how the people like new things. So everybody in Ecuador is going crazy about the league and the whole process. And right now, it's going well. But as you said, we have to look attractive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody, did you?
Well, in the Caribbean, we don't have a big pool of marketing professionals, especially in sport. The good thing about it is that soccer is entertainment. And, we have so many platforms for promotion and marketing now that we are lucky that we can try some of these things. But we need, especially in the Caribbean, to have more people that have careers in sport. And as I said earlier, our society is more about traditional professionalism. But when it comes to sport, there's always a hesitation to really build resources in sport management. But I think we have the duty to really promote this aspect of it because it is very important to us. And that is how, especially the CFU, is looking to really ensure that their professionals are being trained, right? Because the training is available.
And if I had to do it again, it would be about building fan base from the ground up and also ensure that the place from the 4 P's of simple marketing is there before you go into actual.
Right.
Your
There's
marketing
already
plan.
the plan.
Before your activation, yes, because if you do not have the football-friendly facilities set up within the communities represented by the teams, then you have no home games.
Yeah.
The stadia that we use were erected for the Youth World Cup, and they are not placed in the communities represented by the teams represented in the Pro League. And therefore, teams have no home games. So the games are just placed intermittently throughout the communities away from the home team. So therefore people do not have that emotive link with the clubs. They cannot identify as being part owners of the clubs, and therefore it's difficult to build a fan base and a long-term fan base at that.
A house without a foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So therefore you have to ensure that those things are in place before, and that's why I like the MLS, where they set it up in such a way that you purchase your franchise and you have to prove that you have these facilities in place and so on, and you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed before you get into actual activity. So that is a critical aspect as well.
Yeah.
It's an important part of a conversation we had, a couple of minutes ago, right? With fiscal responsibility, right? How you drive revenue, how you create some form of media reach. I think are in many ways built off of the assets that you have to deliver, right? And I think that to date, what the league has done incredibly well is promote a brand identity, right? Talk about who they want to be, why they want to be it, right? This league of Canadians, for Canadians, by Canadians, filling a void that may have existed for a significant period of time. They've done a great job in engaging local supporters and communities, right? To give the sense of this being an uplifting, fan-driven experience, right? Are two aspects of it. But it's not lost on us that when you're starting from nothing, it's very hard to walk into a room and sell something. You're selling hope and you're selling a dream, which is kind of what we do on a pretty regular basis anyway. But we recognized that at the onset, and we talked about just what Canada Soccer has done over the last 10, 15 years. The leadership group at Canada Soccer has, I would argue, transformed it from what it was 10, 15 years ago to a sustainable national association now with a handful of very deliverable assets, right? Very valuable assets. So the talk from the beginning was always how we shared those with the league to be able to package a lot of what we were seeking to partners, right? To be able to bring in revenue to a third-party group, if you will. Not dissimilar from the way some kind of operates within Major League Soccer and U.S. Soccer. It was a very interesting concept that we found might be able to help us and help deliver sustainability fiscally.
How difficult, and I guess this question or the answer will be different in many angles, but when you think about the relationship between the league, the federation, a players' union, if it exists, right? How difficult is it to maintain a sustainable relationship, and especially when you're A, trying to grow a league, and B, trying to sustain the infrastructure of the league in the first place? How important is it to maintain that sort of triangle?
Well, for us, at the beginning was a little bit hard because it's like getting out of a system from the federation. So, and with all the things that our continent suffered, corruption and everything, it was like a good way to begin something new. But it's up to us to keep the good relation because we need it. Because in our countries, when you don't have everybody united, you can't work things out. We have a lot of problems, but if we're together, probably it's going to make it a lot easier. So right now we have a good relation. I mean, normal, because
it's fine.
It's fine because we're doing our stuff, and probably sometimes there's like type of jealous. And at the end, it's just show them that you can work better, and they can come and help you. So that's a big part of it.
It was a similar experience for us as well. In the
Really?
beginning, we had some difficulties with the federation. They I have to put this carefully. The sitting president.
That's why my question was.
He,
Please.
was not involved in the league. Subsequently, initially he was involved, and then he stepped back, and then the other owners continued the professional league. So we have to tread very lightly and carefully. But I think, you know, that as long as you reach out and as long as you respect the federation's wishes and you confide and you keep consistently in contact with them and you let them know that you are in support of their goals, which is to build a stronger national team. And you cannot have a strong national team without a successful professional league. Then everyone starts to think in and go in the right direction, and then from there you can start to really, you know, work together to ensure that football wins at the end of the day.
Well, the way I see it is if once the federation accepts that the development of professional football is of supreme benefit to the game in the individual countries, we shouldn't have a problem. The onus is on all three entities to work together to ensure that the game in the country improves. So I don't think that is so hard. I know sometimes that presidents get kind of jealous of the attention paid to new professional leagues and see it sometimes as a threat. But you know, after a while, I think everybody understands. It's a change, and people have to accept the change and just work together. Shouldn't be a problem.
I think we have it a little, I wouldn't say easier. Different might be a better way to push it, because you know, we're starting something from nothing, right? So the relationship that we have is a vital one, right? But it was a relationship that started from the very beginning. You know, I can still remember the game. We played Jamaica at home in Toronto in 2014, and I remember having a meeting about the talk of CPL, right? The talk of the league. So the dialogue from the beginning, 4 or 5 years ago, has always been federation, league, together, right? So I think that helped to a certain degree. You're always going to bump up against conflict and tension, right? There's always going to be issues on one side that they may feel aggrieved about decisions you've made on the other. But I think what we've heard from everyone here is that it's important that they work symbiotically together, right? It's important that there's a conversation going on so that you can avoid those pitfalls when they do happen, right? And that's sort of the process we're in right now to make sure that when it gets launched, we will have avoided all of those little hiccups because we will have had discussions all along the way.
I want to leave with, because I think it's a good question that everybody should hear. A good answer that they should hear from you is, what's the biggest takeaway that you have learned when it comes to professionalizing a league or trying to create a league or grow? What's the biggest thing that you said, this is something that I really am going to learn as the years go on?
I think that trying to get everybody together. Like we missed talking about the players
Right.
before, and the players they always worry about if they're gonna get paid or not.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, I don't know, probably Canada's different, but if we like get everybody involved in the system, they let them learn how is it, probably they're gonna be like more careful about what they do or what they want to say, because now they know. And the thing is to try to have everybody into the game, into the league. It's at the beginning it's hard, but that's what is most important for us.
Yeah, I see it as a small business mentality, right? You need the workers need to know what's happening from a day-to-day perspective. The owners need to know that there's a level of hard work being implemented, and that the message needs to be put across every day. That's what I'm hearing from that side, right?
For me, if I had to bring it down into one word, I would say intellect.
Intellect.
intellect. You must have the right people involved in order to make professional football a success. And well, I guess that goes for any business, any endeavor you're in. The people who are involved in running and building a league must have the experience, and if not, then they must be educated and get gradually the intellect necessary to be able to make the right decisions and be strategic in their thinking.
Know your job.
Exactly.
Earl?
I would probably go back to what I said at the beginning about the reference and analogy I made to an ecosystem, right? That every single move, every single decision that you make, every single thing that happens within one affects everything down the line. You know, whether it's we want to sign 160, 180 players to launch a league, well, do you have the infrastructure to do all of that? How have you trained all of the people within your staff on TMS, for example? You know, what is the impact in your community to layering a professional club over top of an infrastructure that's existed for 100 years, right? You know, and has kind of evolved to a point where they may not like change all that often. How do you deal with that change management approach in those types of situations? Every single thing that happens has some sort of repercussion to everything within the game, and that has been my biggest kind of eye-opener, for sure.
Randy, as an overseer of a bigger side, right? What's your biggest takeaway, would you say?
Well, I would say that the paramount is looking out for the interests of the entertainers, which in this instance are the players. Basically, I think that sometimes we get so caught up with the business because there are a lot of funds that we invest and we forget about the players and the real needs of the players and how they're being treated as professionals. So basically, I think that we really need to put the players as a focal point, especially when you are in growth, when you're starting and you want to grow your league, right? Because the players essentially are the people who do the most promotion or the most important promotion for your leagues.
I think that's a really good point, because when you look at how MLS is evolving right now, and you see talent being brought in perhaps from South America, but they know that there's a small window where they will stay, where maybe the European leagues will come and take them. It's imperative for a young league to take care of their players, because the longer they stay in this league, especially the successful ones, the better the successful and the chances these leagues will grow, right? Gentlemen, I want to thank you, Earl Cochran, Miguel Angel, Lour, Dexter Skeen, Randy Harris. Thank you so much. It was a really great conversation, and I really encourage, hopefully if you have time to talk to anybody who has more questions, because we could really talk about this for longer than just 35, 40 minutes. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.